The snow was falling hard, and the wind was cold like knives. Ethan Cross walked alone in the mountains, far from the nearest town. He had no real reason to be there, except he wanted to be alone. After leaving the army, the noise in his head never stopped, but up here, it was quiet, almost too quiet. Ethan carried only a backpack, a radio, and a small heater. He followed an old frozen trail that no one used anymore. The land was empty, except for white hills and broken rocks, but then he heard something strange, a soft humming sound beneath his feet. He stopped, knelt down, and placed his hand on the ice. It was vibrating. He stood up and looked around. But there was nothing, just snow, wind, and silence. Then suddenly, the ground cracked under him. The ice gave way, and he fell straight down into darkness. He hit something hard, rolled to the side, and groaned. His flashlight flew from his hand, but it stayed on. He looked around slowly, breathing heavily. He was inside a large underground chamber made of metal and rock, and in the center was a tall glass pod, covered in frost. Ethan stood up and walked closer. Inside the pod was a woman, but not fully human. Her skin was a soft shade of violet, and her long white hair floated inside the chamber. Her eyes were closed, but her body looked alive, not dead, not sleeping, but waiting. Strange symbols glowed on the pod, and wires were connected to machines around her. Ethan touched the glass, and that's when her eyes opened. They were bright silver, glowing even in the dim light. His heart stopped. He stepped back in shock, but he couldn't look away then. He heard a voice, but not with his ears. It was inside his head, soft and clear. "Show mercy, human," the voice said. "My body will give you powerful offspring." Ethan's mouth fell open. "What the hell?" he whispered. He looked around again, scared he was being watched. "Who are you?" he asked aloud, but the voice replied without sound. "I am Zalara. I was made, not born. They kept me here for a purpose." When I refused, Ethan stepped closer again. He looked at the machines, unsure what they did. He saw a control panel with a red button marked Release. He hesitated, his hand above the button. "Please." The voice begged again. "They will find me soon. If I fall into their hands again, your planet will burn." Ethan didn't know what to believe. Was she lying? Was this a trap? But something inside him said she was telling the truth. He pressed the button. The pod hissed, and the glass lifted slowly. Cold vapor poured out, and the woman Zalara collapsed into his arms. She was cold, weak, but breathing. Her eyes looked into his full of pain and something else, fear. Ethan took off his jacket and wrapped it around her. "We need to get out of here," he said. She nodded slowly, then pointed at the ceiling. Above them, something was moving. Ethan looked up and saw a small black drone scanning the room. It blinked red, then flew away through a narrow tunnel. "They found us," Zalara whispered, her voice now real and shaking. "They're coming." Ethan grabbed his flashlight and helped her stand. "We'll find another way out," he said, trying to stay calm. He noticed she was barefoot and shivering. He carried her toward the metal door at the back of the chamber. To his surprise, it opened by itself, sensing her presence. They moved through a dark corridor filled with strange lights and sounds. Zalara leaned on him, whispering directions as they moved. "This place was not built by humans," she said. "This was one of their secret labs. A breeding vault." Ethan didn't like the word breeding. "What do they want from you?" he asked. She paused, then looked at him. "My DNA is unique," she said. "They wanted me to create an army. Children stronger than any species. Alive." Ethan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. "And now?" he asked. "I chose not to," she answered. "I escaped their plan. That's why they froze me, and that's why they want me back." A loud explosion shook the corridor. Ethan grabbed her hand and ran. "We'll talk later," he said. "Right now." "We survive." As they disappeared into the shadows, the drone sent a message across the stars. "Target located," it said. "Begin retrieval protocol." Asterisk snowflakes danced in the dark sky. but the mountain was no longer silent. Above the trees, 2 black alien ships floated without sound. Their lights flashed across the forest, scanning every inch of land, and deep below, under layers of snow and rock, Ethan was running for his life with a being not of this world. Solara stumbled beside him, her breath fast, her body still weak, her skin glowed faintly, and her white hair flowed behind like threads of light. They had just escaped the secret lab barely, and now something terrible was coming for them. Behind them, the walls shook. The tunnel they'd come through was now collapsing. An alarm echoed through the metal halls. Not a human alarm, but something older, colder. Suddenly, Solara stopped. She touched the wall with her hand and whispered something in a strange language. The wall melted into light, opening a hidden path. "Quick," she said, "this will lead us above, but we don't have much time." Ethan helped her through the narrow passage. He could feel the heat behind them, fire, or energy, or something worse. And then he heard it, a sound like claws on steel. The hunters were close. They reached the surface just as the sun touched the mountain peaks. But peace did not wait for them. A dark shape dropped from the sky. It was a black drone, the size of a hawk. Its red eye flashed, scanning Solara. "Target located," it said, and fired a glowing dart. Ethan grabbed Solara and rolled behind a fallen tree. The dart hit a rock and exploded in blue fire, sending snow flying into the air. "Keep moving," Ethan said, pulling her up again. "We need to find cover." They ran into the forest, branches cutting their skin, cold air burning their lungs, but the drone followed them silently, like a shadow that never slept. Solara stopped and raised her hand, her eyes glowing again. Time slowed, everything froze. Snowflakes hung in the air like tiny diamonds. The wind stopped, the trees stood still, and even the drone paused mid-flight. Ethan gasped, unable to move, unable to speak. Then she blinked, and time flowed again. The drone exploded into pieces, falling like black snow. Solara collapsed beside him, breathing hard. "I can't do that again," she said. "Not until I recover." Ethan looked at her, realizing something important. She wasn't just powerful, she was dangerous. And now she was in his hands. They kept moving until they found an old cabin deep in the woods. It was broken, but enough to hide for a while. Ethan built a fire, covered the windows, and sat beside her. "You need to tell me everything," he said. "What are you? And why do they want you back so badly?" Solara looked into the fire, her face calm but her eyes full of sadness. "I was made by the Orion Syndicate," she said. "They are not just aliens, they are creators and destroyers. They built me in a lab on a dead moon, mixed the strongest DNA from every race they conquered. They trained me to reproduce, to spread their perfect army, not through war, but through birth." Ethan's throat went dry. "You mean they wanted you to have children?" She nodded slowly. "Children stronger than anything alive, with minds that could control time and matter. But I refused," she said, her voice cracking. "I didn't want to be their tool. So they froze me and locked me away," she continued, "until someone worthy could awaken me." Ethan was silent for a moment. "And now?" he asked. "Do you still have their plans in your mind?" Solara nodded. "Yes, but I also have a choice now. That's why they're afraid." Suddenly, the cabin shook. Ethan grabbed his gun and ran to the window. In the sky, more black ships were appearing, bigger than before. Solara stood, her hands glowing faintly. "They won't stop, Ethan," she said. "Not until I'm back in their hands." Ethan looked at her, then at the ships. He felt fear. "Yes, but also something else. Responsibility. We'll run," he said. "For now, but I'll protect you. Even if you were born to destroy." She looked at him, surprised. "Why?" she asked. "You don't even know me." Ethan gave a small smile. "Because I think you're more than what they made you," he said. "And maybe, just maybe, Earth has a chance if you stay free." Outside, the forest echoed with the sound of machines landing. Inside, a human and an alien stood together alone, hunted, but not broken. The fire in the old cabin had gone cold, but Ethan couldn't sleep. Outside, the sky was deep black, stars scattered like shattered glass. Inside, Solara sat by the window, watching the moon like she knew it personally. Her silver eyes didn't blink, and her face looked far away, lost in memories that were not from Earth. Ethan finally spoke, his voice soft. "You don't sleep much, do you?" She turned slowly, her voice calm. "I was trained not to." He sat up and walked over, wrapping his blanket tighter. "Who trained you?" he asked. "What, are you really?" Solara stood and placed her hand against the cracked wooden wall. "You want to know the truth?" she said, "then listen, and try not to be afraid." Outside, a quiet wind blew through the trees. Inside, her words changed everything Ethan thought he knew about life. "My creators are called the Orion Syndicate," she began. "They are not one species, but many joined by war, greed, and science. They do not conquer planets through armies alone," she said, walking slowly. "They conquer by making life that obeys them, loves them, and dies for them." Ethan frowned. "You mean they create slaves?" She nodded. "I was one of their greatest creations," she said, her voice flat. "They took the best genes from 100 worlds, the strongest minds, the most beautiful forms, and they mixed them. They wanted me to be more than a soldier," she said. "They wanted me to be a mother." Ethan looked confused. "But why? What's the point of giving birth to an army when they can just build one?" Solara turned to face him, her eyes glowing gently. "Because flesh adapts," she said. "Machines follow orders, but children evolve. They designed me to bond with powerful hosts, to pass on the perfect traits, and make something new, stronger, smarter, unbreakable. But I refused," she added, her voice suddenly full of anger. "I refused to carry their future inside me." Ethan took a step back, not out of fear, but surprise. He had never heard someone speak with so much pain and power at once. "So they froze you," he said, quietly. "Yes," she replied. "They could not kill me, so they put me to sleep, hoping one day someone would wake me. Someone desperate, or greedy, or lonely." She looked at him, her eyes sharp. "Why did you press the button, Ethan?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He walked to the other side of the cabin and looked at the fire's dying glow. "I don't know," he said. "I just felt like you were real, not just another monster," he added. "Not something that belonged in a cage." Solara's face softened, but only for a second. She walked back to the window and sat down again. "The truth is, I don't know what I am anymore," she whispered. "I was made to create life, but never had a life of my own." Ethan sat next to her, keeping his distance but close enough to hear her breathing. He thought about his own life war. Loss, silence, maybe they weren't so different. Suddenly, Solara gasped and grabbed her head. "Ethan," she said, her voice tight with pain. "They're close." Her eyes flashed, and a vision filled her mind, bright lights, ships cutting through clouds, voices speaking in a strange code. "They're scanning for me," she said. "They can feel me now. The connection is waking." Ethan stood, grabbing his gear. "Then we need to move again," he said. "Can you walk?" She nodded, but slowly. "Every hour I spend on this planet, I grow stronger," she said. "But they'll come faster too." They stepped out into the cold night, their breaths like smoke. Solara looked up at the stars and whispered something in her language. Ethan asked, "What did you say?" She smiled, just a little. "I asked the stars to forget me," she said, "so they won't find me again." They began walking into the forest, heading toward the low hills in the distance. Behind them, deep underground, a machine woke from sleep. A voice spoke through the dark wires and metal. "Genetic source active. Target breeder is mobile. Activate retrieval forces." Above the sky, a ship moved silent, black and fast. Ethan and Solara had no idea what was flying toward them. But the truth was now out. She was no ordinary alien. She was a weapon, a key, and maybe something more. The rain came suddenly, heavy and warm, washing over the silent road like a curtain of smoke. Ethan didn't remember falling asleep, but now he was awake, his hands tied, and blood dried on his temple. He was in the back of a military truck, the floor cold and metal. Outside, men in black armor stood in the rain, their faces hidden behind glass masks. They weren't local soldiers. They were something else, something prepared for war against more than humans. Truck jolted forward, making Ethan roll onto his side. His head hurt, and his memory felt foggy. But one thing was clear: Zilara was gone. He looked through the small window, hoping to see the forest, the cabin, anything familiar. But the road below was smooth and black, far from the mountains. He had been taken miles away from her, the truck. Doors slammed open, and a man stepped inside, not a soldier, but someone with sharp eyes and a cold voice. He knelt in front of Ethan and said, "You gave shelter to an alien breeder. You're going to disappear." Ethan stared at him, confused and angry. "You have no idea what she really is," he said, his voice weak but steady. "She's not your enemy." The man smiled in a strange way. "Oh, we know what she is," he said. "And that's exactly why we want her back." They dragged Ethan into a white facility with no windows and no sound, down long halls that smelled like chemicals and silence. He was placed in a dark room, alone, cold, and forgotten. But not for long. An hour later, the door opened again, and someone new walked in. A woman in a lab coat with soft eyes and a nervous smile. "My name is Dr. Kira Lang," she said. "I don't work for them, not really." Ethan didn't answer, but his eyes stayed on her. She placed a hand on the wall, and the lights dimmed. "I'm here because I believe you," she whispered, "and because I know what Zilara truly is." Ethan stood slowly, unsure whether to trust her. "What do you mean?" he asked. "You've seen her?" Dr. Lang nodded, her face full of hidden fear. "Yes," she said. "I was part of the original team that studied her when they found her pod. They wanted to use her genetics to create super soldiers," she said. "But when she resisted, they changed the plan." Ethan's fists tightened. "Changed it how?" Dr. Lang looked down, her voice trembling. "They tried to force her into breeding with selected hosts," she said. "They believed the children would be unstoppable, but the process didn't work without her consent," she added. "Her body rejected all attempts. They called her broken, but I knew she was choosing." Ethan's mind raced. All this time, he had thought he was protecting her from aliens, but now he realized humans were just as cruel. "Where is she now?" he asked. "In breeding chamber 7, she said. "They've restarted the project. They think you activated something in her DNA. They think you're compatible." Ethan felt sick. He slammed his hand against the wall. "Then we need to get her out." Dr. Lang handed him a small device. "This will unlock the internal doors," she said. "But once you use it, you'll have 10 minutes before security floods the wing." He took it and nodded. "Why are you helping me?" he asked quietly. She looked into his eyes. "Because if she gives birth under their control," she said, "it will not be a child. It will be a weapon." Ethan moved fast, using the code to slip through the halls. He wore a stolen lab coat and mask, keeping his head low. The deeper he went, the stranger the air felt. The walls were glowing faintly, now alive. Almost breathing, he reached chamber 7, and the door required a hand scan. He placed the device Dr. Lang gave him on the panel, and it clicked open. Inside, the room was round, filled with soft blue light and cold mist. And there she was, Zilara, strapped to a silver chair, wires in her arms, her eyes closed, but her body glowing softly. A robotic voice echoed, "Greeting sequence in progress. Host DNA scanning." Ethan rushed forward, breaking the restraints. Zilara's eyes snapped open, and for a moment, she didn't recognize him. Then her voice entered his mind again, tired but clear. "You came back." He helped her stand. But alarms began screaming across the facility. Red lights blinked, and the robotic voice changed tone. Unauthorized access, security alert. Ethan looked into her glowing eyes. You ready? He asked. She smiled weakly, always. As they ran from the chamber, the machines behind them began to melt. Solara's energy had returned stronger than before, but neither of them knew, yet, that something else had been left behind in that room, something alive. The walls were breathing, not like machines, not like air vents, but like something alive. As Ethan and Solara ran through the glowing corridor, he felt the ground pulse under his boots. A low hum followed them, like the sound of a giant heart, beating deep beneath the earth. This place wasn't just a lab anymore, it was waking up. Behind them, alarms blared, flashing red and white lights over the silver walls. Above them, cameras turned, tracking every move, and inside the system, something ancient opened its eyes. Ethan helped Solara down a stairwell, their hands locked tight. Her strength was coming back fast, too fast. He could feel the heat in her skin, the strange glow around her growing brighter. I don't think this place was made by humans, he said, breathing hard. Solara looked up at the ceiling, her voice low. It wasn't, she said. This chamber is older than your civilization. They reached a large circular room with smooth metal walls and a glowing platform in the center. It looked like a place meant for worship or sacrifice. Solara stopped suddenly, eyes wide with fear. I know this place, she whispered. This is where they started the tests. Ethan stepped closer to the platform. Confused, on it, a strange shape began to form, floating above the surface, a swirling cloud of blue light and dust. Then it shifted into something else, something terrible, a baby, suspended in light, part human, part something else. Its eyes opened, glowing bright white, and for a moment, it looked directly at Ethan. What is that? He asked, backing away. Solara was shaking, her voice tight with pain. It's a projection, she said. A memory from the failed hybrid tests. They tried to grow life from my DNA, using stolen human cells, she said, but without a true connection. The results were unstable. The image shifted again, showing twisted creatures, broken forms screaming in silence. Ethan turned away, his stomach turning. They used your body like a code, he said, trying to force a password from locked DNA. Solara nodded, her voice full of quiet rage. They never understood that my genes are not just science, they're choice. Suddenly, the platform cracked and a new light burst from the floor. A voice, cold and digital, echoed from the walls. New host recognized. Reproductive link detected. Merging process will begin. Before Ethan could react, the floor under him lit up with symbols. Solara screamed and reached out, but it was too late. He was pulled into the air by invisible energy, his body floating above the platform. Eyes wide, Solara stepped onto the circle, glowing with power. No, she said, not him. The symbols flickered, confused. The system had never seen resistance from the source. Compatibility confirmed, the voice insisted. Breeder and host genetic match found. Ethan's body was burning. He felt his memories flashing by, his childhood, the war, the silence after. Then suddenly, everything stopped. He stood in a black space, nothing around him but light and wind. Solara appeared before him, not in body, but in mind. You're inside the merge, she said, but I can guide you out. Ethan felt something deep inside him shifting. A piece of him was changing, bonding with something unknown. Is this what they wanted? He asked. She nodded slowly. Yes, but with them in control. We can stop it, she said. But only if you trust me. Ethan didn't speak. He just reached for her hand. Their fingers touched and the black space shattered. He fell back onto the platform, gasping, his chest glowing faintly with the same light as hers. Solara collapsed beside him, both of them breathing hard. The voice echoed one final time, but now it sounded unsure. Merge disrupted. Sequence incomplete. Unknown variation detected. Ethan looked at his hands, his skin flickering with strange lines like circuits. Solara stared at him, eyes wide. You changed, she said softly. You carry part of me now. Before they could speak again, the chamber door burst open. Soldiers flooded in, armed and ready to kill. But Ethan stood up, and the lights in the room dimmed. He raised his hand without thinking, and every weapon in the room melted. The soldiers screamed and ran. But he didn't chase them. He turned to Zalara and whispered, "What am I now?" She stepped forward and placed a hand on his chest. "You're becoming what they feared," she said. "A human with power not meant for your kind." Outside, the facility began to fall apart. The merging process had broken something deep in the system, but far above, in orbit, a ship received the data. A new hybrid was born, and the Orion Syndicate had just found its prize. Asterisk, the fire didn't burn the walls. It passed through them, blue flames licking the steel without leaving a mark. It wasn't heat, it was energy, raw and alive. And at the center of it stood Ethan Cross, no longer fully human, not yet something else. His skin shimmered under the glow. Faint lines ran across his arms and chest like glowing veins of light. His heartbeat echoed in the walls, not as a sound but a command. Every machine in the room had shut down, silent in his presence. Like prey before a predator, Zalara stood beside him, watching in awe and fear. "You shouldn't be standing," she whispered. No human could survive the merge. Ethan turned to her, his eyes still his but deeper, like galaxies staring back. "I don't feel pain," he said quietly. "I don't feel tired. I feel awake." The moment didn't last. From the far corridor, heavy footsteps approached, metal boots on steel floors. A new unit had arrived, not human soldiers this time, but something worse. 5 tall figures entered the room, covered in silver armor with no visible faces. They moved like wolves, silent and exact. Each held a different weapon, one for cutting, one for freezing, one for draining life. They were not there to capture Ethan and Zalara. They were there to erase them. The lead figure pointed its hand, and the walls sealed behind them. "No way out." Zalara raised her arm, her palm glowing with bright white light. But Ethan stepped forward, calm and still. "I'll handle this," he said. She stared at him, unsure. "Ethan, these are death squads. They don't stop." He didn't reply. He simply looked at the 5 armored killers and said one word. They didn't. Instead, the one with the cutting blade lunged forward, fast as lightning. But before it could reach him, Ethan vanished. Not ran, not dodged, vanished. Like light being turned off. Then reappeared behind the attacker, with a single wave of his hand. The metal armor cracked and folded, crushing the creature inside without a sound. The others turned, confused but too slow. Ethan moved again, faster than their sensors. His hands touched the second and third warriors, and they collapsed instantly. Their energy drained like smoke from a candle. Zalara watched, heart pounding. She had known the merge would change him, but not like this. This was something new, something terrifying. The last 2 enemies raised energy blades, trying to strike from a distance. Ethan caught one mid-air with his mind, stopping it inches from his face. He looked at the weapon and melted it into dust. The last soldier turned to run, but Ethan only looked at him, a flash of blue light, and it exploded without a sound. Silence filled the chamber once more, broken only by the sound of Ethan's breathing. He turned to Zalara, confused. "I didn't mean to kill them," he said. "I just wanted them to stop." She stepped forward, slowly. "Ethan, your power isn't just strength," she said. "It's intention. What you feel becomes real now." He shook his head, trying to hold on to something, his humanity. "I'm still me," he said. "Right?" Zalara touched his face gently. "I don't know," she said, "but I believe you're more than them and more than me." A sudden sound broke the moment, beeping from a hidden console. Zalara walked to Kazu. It and gasped. "They're coming," she said. "The Syndicate. They've sent something bigger." In orbit above Earth, a massive ship had appeared, blacker than space itself. Inside it, millions of minds spoke in one voice. "Activate Reclaimer Protocol. Prepare to extract hybrid source. Ethan felt. It deep in his bones a pull, like gravity calling him home. But he wasn't going to follow it. He looked at Solara and said, "If they want me, they'll have to come down here." She nodded, but her eyes were filled with worry. "There's more, Ethan," she said. "You're not the only one." He turned sharply. "What do you mean?" "They made others before me," she said. "Some failed. Some didn't. They're going to wake them up too." Ethan clenched his fists, his power humming under his skin. "Then we don't run anymore," he said. "We find the others. We stop the syndicate, and we end this." Outside the facility, the earth rumbled. A new age was beginning, one not ruled by humans or aliens, but by something in between, something unexpected, a hybrid. The child was born in silence, not in a lab, not on a battlefield, but in a forgotten valley where flowers grew wild and the sky stayed quiet. No doctors were present, no machines beeped, no weapons watched. Only the wind, the stars, and the parents, who once stood between two worlds. 5 years had passed since Ethan Cross became something more than human. 5 years since Solara chose Earth as her sanctuary. And in those 5 years, peace had returned, but it was a quiet, uncertain kind of peace, like a still lake that hides what waits beneath the surface. The boy was named Kale, and he did not cry when he was born. He simply opened his eyes bright silver like his mother's, and deep like his father's voice. From the moment he took his first breath, the world felt different. The grass grew faster where he walked. Animals paused when he passed. Even the rain changed its path to avoid touching him. But Kale was not feared, not by those who knew him. He was calm, thoughtful, and quiet. He did not speak often. But when he did, even the trees seemed to listen. Ethan and Solara raised him in secret, in a house carved into the side of a cliff, hidden from the satellites, away from cities, and beyond the reach of the Orion Syndicate, at least for now. But peace never lasts forever. Far above Earth, in the shadows of space, the Syndicate had never stopped watching. They had seen the hybrid child, seen his birth through stolen satellites and energy readings, and they feared him more than anything they had ever created. He was not one of theirs, he was something else, something unbound. Inside their flagship, a council of voices argued in digital whispers. "He must be collected," one voice hissed. "He must be destroyed," another replied. Or, "He must be crowned," said a third, colder than the others. On Earth, Ethan felt the shift before any machine did. His eyes turned skyward, and he whispered, "They found us." That night, Solara stood outside Kale's room, watching him sleep. She could feel the storm coming, not wind, not rain, but war. Ethan walked beside her and asked, "What do we do when they land?" Solara looked at her son and answered softly, "We let him decide." Dawn came fast, and with it, the sky cracked open. 3 massive ships appeared above the valley, black, smooth, silent. No weapons fired, no warnings were given. A single pod lowered from the center of the lead ship, touching down without a sound. From the pod, a figure stepped out, tall, dressed in silver, its face hidden behind a glass mask. It did not speak aloud, but its message filled the minds of all 3. "We do not come to fight," it said. "We come to speak with the child." Ethan stood in front of his home, Kale holding his hand. Solara stood behind them, her energy humming just beneath her skin, ready to erupt. But Kale stepped forward, calm and sure. His small voice rang out, not loud but powerful. "I know why you came," he said, "but I am not yours." The silver figure tilted its head. "You are our future," it replied. "You are more than them," it nodded toward Ethan. "And more than her," it nodded at Solara. Kale didn't blink. "I am both," he said. "And something new." The figure took a step closer, but Kale raised his hand. "You came to take me," he said. "But I won't go." The figure paused, unsure. Kale walked up to it and gently touched its chest. "You fear what I will become," he said. "But I choose peace." Suddenly, the ships above began to shake, their engines faltering. Systems crashing, not from attack, but from rejection. Kale's energy had reached into them and spoken a single command. Leave. And they did. The ships turned silently and vanished into the clouds. No war, no blood, no screams, just silence. Kale turned back to his parents and smiled. I don't want to destroy anyone, he said. Not even them. Ethan knelt beside him, tears in his eyes. You're better than all of us, he said. Solara placed her hand on Kale's head. No, she said. He is hope. And in that quiet valley, where wildflowers swayed and the sky stayed still, a new chapter of life began, not ruled by fear, not driven by power, but by the simple choice to be something better.